globalization, the demilitarization of the Russian economy. I mean, at this point, what's the incentives to do that? And he's hoping for that major shift on the politics, if not on the battlefield. Where we can see that over a longer period of time, at the rate that Russia's moving now, it can take more and more territory, but it still is far short of the kind of mythical annexation of all the territory that Russia's already made. The declaration that all of the Donbass, Donetsk and Luhansk and Zaporizhia and Kherson, in addition to Crimea, are part of the Russian Federation. I mean, that doesn't stand up to scrutiny. But Putin's hoping that politically that will come to pass because of changes elsewhere. So if those changes prove to be catastrophic for support for Ukraine, and there's more problems in Ukraine itself, absolutely things could keep on shifting in Putin's direction, and Trump will keep on pressing that Ukraine for him is a losing proposition, and if Europeans are not able to step up, then we see more likely on the trajectory that we're on that Ukraine will find it very difficult to resist, basically giving up territory, and then we still have this problem of who's going to give Ukraine security guarantees. I think there's one important element here that a colleague raised with me this morning that they pointed out that, I mean, it's obvious to all of us, but it hasn't been pointed out, that this is really kind of unique in Russian history, and probably in the history of most countries, that Russia is paying its soldiers enormous amounts to fight this war. If we think back as historians to previous wars, you always give conscripts, volunteers, they're not being paid as contractors or as mercenaries to fight in the war. And that's essentially what we're seeing in Russia. Putin is basically gambling that he has enough money to keep on paying people to go to the front. And that's taking the edge off social discontent, until the war ends, because then people are going to still get those payments coming back home again. So war has become lucrative, not just for the people who profit from it, the defence sector, or skim money off, we're seeing all of that in Ukraine, but for those people who go to die at the front. I mean, for Ukraine, this is an existential, literally existential question about going to fight at the front. But for Russians, it's now an issue of pay. And I think part of that is because Putin himself is a fairly astute historian of Russia and previous wars. World War II was an existential fight because that's the fight that came to Russia. And all the Soviet Union rather, and to all Ukraine and Kazakhstan and Armenia and everywhere else. But World War I wasn't fought really in Russia. It was fought on the kind of the margins, but it was fought in other places. And at that point, you had an army of people who were forced into the army for a 25-year period, and it was pretty awful. And that was the essence of the revolution. You're not getting people now baying for peace in Russia, bread, for the for the peasants, and peace for the soldiers, and land for the peasants and bread for the workers. You're not getting those kinds of slogans because Putin's taken the edge off. Particularly if you're in Moscow, it's looking pretty nice. And out there in the provinces, you get all this money from payments from the front, blood money, that's kind of sloshing around there for now. I mean, yes, we're hearing stories that some of this is becoming more difficult to make, but Putin's betting that he can do this for that 1.5, 2, 3 years, Carol, that you're kind of laying out there. So, I mean, I think that's kind of why we're seeing Putin playing along, or playing Trump along, and playing all of these politics as much as he possibly can. I mean, he can keep paying for this, he'd probably prefer not to, but he also has that dilemma about what does he do when he doesn't pay for this anymore. I mean, there is again, this, can Putin afford peace? For now, he thinks he can afford war, but can he afford peace? And that's, kind of becomes all of the kind of questions about, do Europeans want to basically start trading with Russia again? Are they going to be forced to? Is there going to be some paying Russia for devastating Europe? We had the Marshall Plan, we rebuilt Germany, but we're occupying Germany. No one's going to be occupying Russia. So there's same with Japan. Could we look for a kind of a durable peace there? If you think about, Japan still doesn't have a peace treaty with Russia since World War II, by the way. There was never the conclusion of a peace between Russia, the Soviet Union and Japan. And then there wasn't a peace between Russia and Japan even though one was supposed to be drawn up by the year 2000 by Yeltsin. That never happened. Could we end